thousands of delegates from across Africa and beyond started their 2026 edition of the Investing in African Mining Indaba today in Cape Town, South Africa. This year's Indaba highlights cooperation and partnership that's needed to further the mining sector development across the continent. Now let's get more from the Mining Indaba Summit with my guest, a mining investor and expert with more than 40 years in the industry in Africa and in the United States. Welcome, Peter Major, Director of Mining at Modern Corporate Solutions in Cape Town, South Africa. A great evening to you, sir, and good to see you again on the Arise Exchange.
Good evening to you, Boson, and great to hear you. I'm afraid I can't see you, but it's great to hear your voice.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's good to see you again. I'm sure we appreciate you staying back at the office. It's been a very a full day for you at the Indaba. But the theme for this year's Indaba Summit was about stronger together, partnership through progress through partnership. Why do you think this is important for commodity resource African economies? Why do they need to come together?
Look, I'm hoping the penny has dropped, that the nail has dropped, that all the African countries, there's more than 50, we've heard of the United States of Africa for decades, but it's never materialized. And yet the world is in chorus, it's in unison saying, we need Africa to get us through the 21st century. We need Africa's metals to raise all of our economies up to be able to deal with the new era, with the AI, with integrated, automated, robotic. We just see this as the future. And so the African countries are realizing, where have they been the last 30, 40 years? That very few of them are growing. They all have diverse policies, and they're not getting the beneficiation they wanted. It's always this wish list. So I think what they're trying to get across is, guys, maybe we must do more than just talk. Maybe we really need to work together and present a united front, because the world has the money, the world has the demand and the want and the need for our minerals. Now's the time to capitalize it. And just look at these prices. If any of these African countries had played ball with free market capitalism the last 30 years, they would be first world countries by now with these metal prices.
Interesting. Yes, okay, when you look at gold at $5,000 an ounce, that's a whole lot of money on the table by whatever currency exchange you use across Africa. But we're talking about collaboration and partnerships. And I listened to the Honorable Minister, Gwede Mantashe, talking about partnerships and collaborations. What type of partnership would you like to see among mining economies, for example, in Southern Africa that share common borders, South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and others within that region?
It's very interesting that Gwede's speech, if you look at the wordage of it, if you look at the written speech, it's very similar to the president of Zambia's speech. The difference is the president of Zambia follows his words with actions. And unfortunately, the South African mining minister's speech is just words. His actions do not parallel his speech. His actions do not go in the same direction as his speech. So if any president on the African continent has credibility right now, it is the Zambian president. And even before this Zambian president, there were problems with the previous administration, but they at least got rid of horrible negative legislation at the end of the 90s. So they entered the new millennium with good legislation. They still didn't work enough in partnerships, but at least they introduced proper policies and legislation. Whereas the ANC introduced the most negative legislation on the continent. And the result is our mining sector has shrunk over 20 years. Zambia's has grown. And amazingly, DRC's has exploded. Now, how can the countries work together? They should start by doing simple things. They'll never align their policy. They're all too different, probably too arrogant, not bending enough. But if they could start by the logistics, if they could open their borders so it was easier for railroads to cross their borders, if it was easier for trucks to cross their borders, if it was easier for people to cross their borders, That alone, that is so much friction. That is so much lost opportunity, high costs. And that's a simple way they could start collaborating. Then they should collaborate on policy. Otherwise, some countries like Zambia and the DRC are going to continue to get tens of billions in investment, and South Africa is only get tens of millions. But let's just hope they can open their borders for starters. And when they learn how easy it is to get along and coordinate policies, they can work towards beneficiation and other.
So, very interesting. And all this happening at a time when nearly all the world's biggest economies, the US, the Chinese, the Russians, and others are scrambling over Africa's critical minerals. At a time of tense geopolitics, what should be the playbook for Africa's political and policy leaders, Peter?
Oh boy, if they just use their head and think like wise men, think like men that want to do what's best for their country. I don't think they've ever been in a better position than right now this year, Boson, because you have super high commodity prices and you have super demand from big countries, all the big countries, especially China and America. These are leviathans, and they both want to secure the minerals. Europe wants to secure the minerals, and there's a lot of Asian countries that want to secure the minerals. So just think, if you were head of these countries now, you can, I don't want to use the word play them off, but you can play for the best deal and say, what is best for the country? Not what is best for the politicians in charge, because that's how most of these policies seem to steer. You know, it's best for the ruling elite. But they should be saying, what is best for this country for 5 years and 10 years? It's pretty easy to say what's best. Infrastructure development, transparency, fair trade, and creation of jobs. That's what's best for the country. Not padding politicians' Swiss bank accounts, not doing opaque deals behind closed doors.
So, but are you seeing some progress in the mining industry? You mentioned the DRC President Felix Tshisekedi and, of course, Zambian President Ichilema. Are you seeing progress? What are further steps would you like to suggest, even for countries such as Zimbabwe, using the currency, the gold to support the local currency, the ZiG, for example, and even Botswana trying to diversify out of just diamond and go across other mining products?
Botswana is not endowed with the really rich, easy to get minerals that Zambia, the DRC, and Zimbabwe have, unfortunately. So Botswana has had a much more market-friendly policy, and they've really needed it. And they probably have to look at bigger incentives because they don't have the giant rich deposits many of their neighbors do. They have to have an even more attractive policy and legislative environment to attract investment. Now, South Africa and Zimbabwe, they seem to me to be the big holdouts. Even Namibia is eclipsing South Africa for new investment. So you have very stubborn administrations, ruling parties in Zimbabwe and South Africa. They just don't want to bend. They don't want to admit they made the wrong policies decades ago. And the longer they hold those policies, the more tens of billions they're losing out on, and the more jobs they're losing out on, more foreign currency they're losing out on. So they could really do better. And what kind of incentives? What do they need? They need help with infrastructure. And they need railroads. That's the most basic infrastructure at all. They need water plants. They definitely need reliable, low-cost electricity. And boy, if they don't have hydro, they have coal. If they don't have coal, they have gas and oil. So all these African countries could be real self-providing energy. Energy. I'm lacking the words here, but I think you know what I mean. They don't need to rely on anybody for cheap power. They can have it themselves if they just make an effort, and they can get the foreign companies and governments now. Foreign governments are now piling in to assist because they want security of minerals.
Yes, interesting. It's the first day of the mining in Indaba. We've got a couple of more days. Peter, we're likely touching base with you later in the week for more on that. Peter Major, Director of Mining at Modern Corporate Solutions in Cape Town, South Africa. We thank you as always for your drill down insights and analysis.